Remember, you can send your questions and your comments to 682-710-1101. That's 682-710-1101. And this is the Intentional Talk Radio Network. You can join us, itrnradio.com. It's a Thursday. It's the end of the week. Get this information, soak up all the knowledge that you can possibly stand, because this is a lot to take in, a lot, but you're going to love it. You're going to love it. Doors are going to be open and you're going to be so glad that you did. So get ready. It's that time. It's time for Legacy Home Loans. At the top of the hour, folks, we will be right back. It's time for Legacy Home Loans right here on itrnradio.com. Get your cold drink, your warm drink, whatever your fancy is. It is time for you to get the information. You're going to want to get this, folks. You're going to want to get this. So let's go. Let's go. Let's get ready. Let's go. It's time for Closing the Gap with Legacy and the Legacy series right here with Todd Simon and his first guest, Ben Slayton. Nick Boucher, and Ben Slayton is the father of Black real estate. First Black man in the country. Black real estate. This is where you're going to get it. Todd Simon is the regional manager of Legacy Home Loans in the South Carolina region. And that's the East Coast region. And he is going to bring us news and views and interesting information from Legacy Home Loans. And I'm going to turn this over to Todd Simon, who is going to get us going. Thank you so much, Todd. How are you?
I am
and
doing
welcome
well.
Welcome to ITRN Radio.
Well, thank you
for
so
joining
much
us.
Thank you so much for having us. Thank you so much for that great introduction. And we're so excited to be included, to have our first radio show on Intentional Talk Radio Network. Again, my name is T. Todd Simon. I'm the regional manager with Legacy Home Loans, and this is the first episode of Reclaiming the Legacy. And today we have just a special guest, none other than our CEO, Mr. Ben Slayton, and our Senior Vice President, Mr. Nick Boucher. How are you guys today, gentlemen?
Wonderful.
Fantastic.
Hello,
How
everyone.
are you, man?
I am doing well.
Hey, Todd, can they see
well,
you?
Sir.
You look sharp, baby. You look real.
Well, I have to put the purple on, sir. I was expecting Ben to have his on today as well. So wanted to make sure I had my dress blues and my dress uniform on today for you,
Yes,
gentlemen.
sir. You look great,
All
brother.
right. So we're just going to jump right into it, if you don't mind. But what we're talking about is really talking about the past, present, and future of Legacy Home Loans. So we just want to start first with the past. Some of the questions that have come to me have been, where did you guys come from? It seems like an overnight success. How long have you guys been in business? So I want to first start with you, Ben, being the first Black realtor in America. Can you tell us how you became the first Black realtor in America, sir?
Well, in 1964 is when I became the first Black realtor. In 1964, none of us could go into the Board of Realtors and ask for an application. It was like the good old boys club, where you had to be sponsored by a member of the association to become a realtor. And there was no way that a young Black male in 1964 was a white person going to sponsor you to become a member. And fortunately, I was adopted by a Jewish family, and they were very anxious to help me become successful. And they found a white person that would sponsor me. And that person charged them $5,000. $5,000 in 1964 could purchase a 2-bedroom, 1-bath house, about 800 square feet. So that's how I became the first Black realtor in America.
All right. And I certainly wish that I could still buy a 2-1 with $5,000 in this day and age, right?
That's
I
right.
know we all wish we could do that, correct? So Nick, I want to come over to you. Please give us a little bit of your background. And if nobody has had the opportunity to hear our Senior Vice President, Mr. Nick Boucher, talk, put on a seatbelt because you're going to feel some goosebumps. So what I want to do, please, is just talk to us, Nick, about being under the tutelage of Mr. Ben Slayton with being the first Black realtor and how that has helped you in your career.
Absolutely, Brother Todd. Again, I want to thank the IT Radio team, tell you guys how much of a blessing that this is to have a platform to spread this message. It's fantastic. Todd, I'm proud of you, brother, for being a leader of Legacy Home Loans and really believing in the crusade. One of the first people to believe in this crusade before anybody else did, but it was still just a vision. So we appreciate you as well. My story is like many stories of individuals from our community. That's not my phone, is it? Sorry about that, guys. All right, cool. So I think I would fast forward to 2018 to bring this forward. At that time, I was already a national recognized mortgage banker in the country. I was a top 1% mortgage banker in this country for 4 years in a row. I'm here in a market like LA, California, that has one of the lowest level of Black home ownership in this country. Less than 20% of Black families actually own their homes in LA. But for me, that was a personal mission. And so we were able to help 1,200 families in this market. We personally produced $527 million of production. And people were pretty shocked that someone so focused in the Black community, where price points are so high, can have that kind of impact. But I think it speaks to the collective consciousness of people who get empowered to do something together and to trust somebody who's going to help guide them. And at that time, I started this crusade in 2016, where I wanted to help create $100 million of Black wealth in the Black LA market. So I had this whole movement around it. I had wrapped my car with the movement. I do these home buying workshops all the time. I was like a crusader. I was like a soldier without a nation. You know what I mean? I was just like on a fire. And at the same, but this is the beauty of God's purpose and God's divine order. Because when at that same time that I'm doing this locally, there's another man named Ben Slayton who's building a company, Legacy Home Loans. And many times it's funny, God says, they say, if you want to hear God laugh, tell God your plans, right? And so I'm looking to build something regionally. And somebody tells me about Ben Slayton 4 years ago. And Ben was building this company. And Ben will tell you that, he was looking for someone who could partner with him. And he went to Google and he put in I think Black mortgage banker, NARAP something. And a young handsome fella in a 3-piece pinstripe suit pulled up on Google Images. And that was your brother, man. And that's how Ben initially found me. So we met in Las Vegas when I first met Ben. And, for me, I had mentors in my life throughout this career. And in the end, I can tell it was strictly about business, because when it came down for me to do a transition, you can tell it was not like a real relationship. It was very much so based on economics. And so Ben, when I met Ben, it gave me the ability to scale my purpose. because I was doing it locally, but then Ben had a national vision. And he said, look, here's how I want to do it. He wrote down, remember you had that yellow pen and notepad? And he wrote down his vision. And he said, I have the wisdom. I've done this many times before, but I'm on my 6th lap. You know, I've done this so many times before. I need a partner who can really help me create this at scale. And he said, I need you. And took some time to think about it, but ultimately it was the right move to make. And so ever since then, I think the biggest thing for me, I'll tell you, that Ben has helped me do was he's helped me understand the value of service. When he and I first had dinner together, 2018, Ben said, if you take the opportunity, you know, I know that your whole career has been about you as a producer, but if you come here, you're called to serve. He said, and the higher you go in life, the more you're called to service. And so it really allowed me to find humility, to find Ben's path, and to have the audacity to believe in something bigger than myself. And that's Legacy Home Loans.
Those are great words, Nick. I really appreciate that. Once again, I told you guys, you know, make sure you put the seatbelt on, because
hey, I'm just getting started, baby. Don't get me. I'm just getting started, okay? Just so you
we got
know.
some more coming. We got some more coming. But since you talked about the foundation, and that's what's important to me. We're talking about the past, where Legacy started from. So Ben, I want to kick that back over to you with our next question. And that's, tell us about Legacy Home Loans, why you started it and when you started it.
Well, you know, I'll go back just a little bit further. I had built several companies in the mortgage industry and real estate industry, and made a little money, and decided that I had done, you know, I'm getting older, and I hadn't done anything for society, for my people. I just was very focused on making myself wealthy, and I decided that it was time to do something differently. So I thought, you know, what has not been accomplished yet, and that is in our field, and that is to have a Black led mortgage banking company that is nationwide, and that everyone in the company looks like you and me, and professionals, people that have these, you know, dedicated their life to being the top of everything that they do. And that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to create something like that, and that's where we are today. You know, I think that each and every one of our people that are associated with us are top professionals, and really are dedicated to service beyond themselves, and making life better for others. You know, if you focus on helping people, the money will come. You don't have to worry about that.
Yes, sir.
And that's really that's my philosophy. And just a little tip about my philosophy, and that is life is geared in 3 different sections. First 20 years is for learning, you know, and being able to kind of from a standpoint of school and being taught, you know, different things. And then the next 40 years is learning and earning. Okay, now you're at 60. And the rest of your life, returning everything that you've learned and earned. You can't take it with you. I know that my wife is going to be well taken care of, but I've got everything in my head, everything that my knowledge and everything, I've got to give it back. So that's what I'm trying to do, is to build a company where I have people that will take what I've learned and the mistakes that I've made, keep from making those mistakes, and really building a company that has integrity. And you know, one of the things that we look for when we hire people is that they belong to the 5H society. And that 5H society is that person has to be humble. That person has to be honest, hungry for success beyond their imagination.
Yes, sir.
They've got to be a hard worker. And most of all, they've got to have the hustle to make it all come together. Without the hustle, the other four doesn't matter too much in order to be, successful. So that's what it's all about.
Absolutely, Ben. And thank you for that. I mean, in the recap, it just sounded like you were just talking and really talking about vision. So as a visionary, to bring something like Legacy Home Loans to fruition, we applaud you and we respect and honor you and give you your flowers while we can and while you can smell them. So, thank you for being here. And so the question I have is, you said something about a little bit of money. So I'm sure that it was a lot of money with the businesses that you built over that period while you were getting into creating Legacy Home Loans. Would that be correct? You don't want to go on record with saying—
I don't think that's necessary.
All right. So let me just ask this next question. And so in the process of creating Legacy Home Loans, did you run into resistance from other companies and colleagues that told you that, hey, that's not going to work? This is something that has never been done before. You're wasting your time. These are the type of borrowers that don't pay their bills. These are the type of borrowers, everything that's negative underneath the sun. Did you run into that type of resistance when you were creating Legacy Home Loans?
Unfortunately, I did. But no doesn't mean no. No just means that you haven't given me enough reason to say yes. So you have to keep working at it and keep going at it. But, it's one of the things that I found as we are building Legacy. It was kind of tough in the beginning, getting the right people. You got to get the right people in the right seats on the right bus. And I can tell you in the beginning, we did not have the right people in the right seats on the right bus. But we finally got there. And now we have a policy and a direction as to what a person has to be like when we hire someone, to make sure that they are within our vision. But today our focus is and our mission is to empower the African American community throughout the United States, with a focus on building wealth through home ownership and leaving family legacies. Sometimes in the mainstream press, that doesn't go over very well. Some people that are not of color wonder how we can focus on just one group of people. And that's really what it is. We focus on one group of people. There are other companies that focus on different types of mortgages. Some people focus on nothing but reverse mortgages. They won't do anything other than reverse mortgages. There are some people that focus on VA loans. That's all they do. We focus on our people. That's all we do. So I don't see a difference. And that's what I try to explain to people. But even with what's going on today with our new home product, we have received tremendous number of people complaining that we can't do this, but there is a law that says you can do it, and we're doing it.
Great. And so in that same vein, Nick, I want to come over to you and talk about the overall mission, culture, and vision of Legacy Home Loans. Can you give us and expound on that a little bit for us, please?
Absolutely. Let me say, Todd, before I do that, that's also why I feel so honored being a part of this company, because even now, sitting with you now, I have my pen and notepad, because I'm still getting notes from Ben today on always ways to get better. So this is always fantastic. I think that the best way to describe a mighty mission is you have to have a culture that people can really galvanize behind. And for Legacy Home Loans, our culture is surrounded with one word, and that word is Ubuntu. Ubuntu. Ubuntu is an African word under Western philosophy that really popularized in the 90s when South Africa ended apartheid without bloodshed. And they asked Nelson Mandela and Bishop Desmond Tutu how they were able to redress these wrongdoings and unify a people. And they said one word, Ubuntu. And Ubuntu is a word that means I am because you are. And the concept in that is to give you guys a parable is there's a story of an anthropologist who comes to Africa and he sees these young kids in the village who have limited resources, and he wants them to compete for a bag of oranges. And he puts a bag of oranges against a tree, and he tells these kids to run and compete for the tree, for the orange. And whoever gets there the fastest, they get to take the oranges and give them to their family. And he said, on your mark, get set, go. And he believes they're going to compete and run for the oranges, but they don't run. Right. Instead, they hold hands and they walk to the tree and they share the oranges. And the guy was stunned and he said, why is it you guys did not compete for the oranges? And one of the kids says, what good is it for me to have all the oranges and my brothers and my sisters, they have none? That is Ubuntu. And what that means for Legacy, by and large, because the focus is so mission focused on the Black experience, we know that there's an opportunity for us to concentrate and unify, and there's power in collective consciousness. The African-American community, if you look at us as a nation, we would be the 9th richest nation in the world. If you go to Google right now and you put in top 25 economies in the country or in the world, you'll get Canada at number 10 that has $1.7 trillion in GDP. Well, last year, Black buying power, Black wealth collectively, $1.8 trillion. So we have more economic power than Canada. But we don't look at ourselves through the lens of Ubuntu. We look at ourselves as individual. I got mine, you get yours. And we believe that collective thought resonates with people who say, you know what, I don't want to go this thing alone. You know, there's a proverb that says, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. We're going somewhere and we're going to go together. And Ubuntu harnesses that spirit within Legacy Home Loans.
Awesome. Awesome. And in that same sentiment, when you're talking about going far, going together, we do know that historically, and of course, with reports in the news and things of that nature, where it talks about the wealth gap being 30% and at an all-time high, mirroring the days of old. You know, what I want to do first, Ben, is kick to you and talk about how we got here, and also want to you know, tie it together with the present and what we're doing today to close that wealth gap. So can you speak on what are some of the contributing factors that caused us to be in a deficit when it comes to the disparity between Black home ownership and other races?
Well, it really, if I do that, it really goes back to slavery. You know, if we want, but we won't go back that far. We'll just go back, let's say 25 days or so after I was born. And the World War II had ended, and there were people coming, soldiers coming home from overseas, and we, you know, they were able to put together a program called the GI Bill, whereby the veterans were going to, when they come home, they were going to be able to get home loans. They were going to be able to go to college. They were going to be able to be trained to do, you know, things like plumbing and construction and stuff like that. However, in those days, there was a restriction, a deed restriction within that was written right into the deeds that said you, if you were not of Caucasian race, then you couldn't live in a certain location. So that gave the banks an ability to redline and not give us give Black people loans in order to become homeowners and start building wealth. And prior to that, there was an organization, a government organization, that drew the maps of where they should lend, whether it would, the red line, everything in red on the map, they said that you couldn't lend there. And then it was yellow, and then there was blue and green. And all of these, green naturally was the best place to put their money. But the government itself is the one that prevented us from obtaining wealth as the white people obtain wealth, the government. And the same maps that they drew then, if you took those very same maps and went to Baltimore or some other large city and overlaid that map over the city, the people that did not get money, 80 years ago, does not get money today. Mm-hmm. That is one of the reasons that some of the large banks are being sued for not lending in some of these areas. And they are required now to start lending in these areas. And, they are coming up with special programs to start lending in those areas because they haven't been doing it. But over the years, that the GI Bill, as far as I'm concerned, is probably the biggest in more recent years of the reason that we are behind the wealth gap the way we are, because everyone got ahead of us because of the deed restrictions that prevented us from getting there.
Yes, sir. And when I hear that, it's deeply disturbing because I'm an actual veteran also. I'm a U.S. Navy veteran. And so, I've been able to actually, purchase my home using the GI Bill because of the time that I served. So when I think about the history and hear about some of the things that happened with the government and us not being able to actually take part and utilize that program because you served, you sacrifice and things like that, it's alarming. All right. But we also know that it's a new day. We do know that. And so, Nick, I want you to actually talk about what we're going to do right now to actually close that wealth gap, because I was reading somewhere, and I hope that you can expound on this, but I read somewhere that says something about $1 billion. So if you could unpack that a little bit, if you could, talk about what we're going to do at Legacy Home Loans to change that narrative.
Absolutely. Me and Ben talk about that a lot over the years, and I'll tell you, to give you some context on that. We talked about, since the Civil Rights of '68, home ownership rates are about the same, right, for African American homeowners. And you think about how we've looked at solving that problem, and a lot of it was going back to address historical injustices to solve that problem through intervention from government. And I think what it tells us is, if you want to solve a problem at scale and make big impact, and you're dependent on the government, good luck. Okay, good luck. And so I think as a result, we have to have a different kind of perspective. And I'll tell you what I see to give you some context. Mm-hmm. So right now, there in the US, there's 130 million US households. Homeownership today for the Black American, if you Google homeownership rate in terms of Q1 of this year, is 45.3%. Okay, 45.3, which gives you about 7.7 million Black households own their home. So that gives you 10 million people who don't own a home. Okay. Well, October of 2020, Freddie Mac produced a report that said that right now there are close to 3 million Black families who have the FICO score, the credit history, and the debt to income ratio to qualify to buy a home, called them mortgage ready, right? I'll give you context for a second. If we did nothing more but turn our attention in solving a problem ourselves, and you can get those 2.9 million people to do for themselves, that's 10.9 million people who will own a home. The home ownership rate in Black America will be 65%. Just pause that for a second.
Yeah.
You understand that? So the question becomes, who has the courage to come out and say, we're going to do a thing for us? Who has the courage to say, you know what, I don't mind taking the arrows on the back because I've done it for almost 60 years. It's an honor to do it. And who's willing to follow that man down the path? And that's where you come into play, I come into play, Charles come into play, Ternicia, all of us now, to mobilize and to be a sergeant or to be a soldier to solve this war that we're in right now. And so Legacy Home Loans says, you know what? Since somebody's going to do it, we'll do it. And we believe that as a result, we can make this impact. And so for us, when you think about that, even $1 billion, we should be talking about 100 billion to solve this problem. You understand? But like B said, we got to start somewhere. To me, $1 billion, that's just planting the seed. 100 billion is the number we should be at. And so for us, what we know is that, okay, if you have these individuals, like I gave you some examples. Last week, we had a lot of attention about Legacy Home Loans. Right. And so we had so many people apply. So to give you some context, this is profound, by the way, B. So I got this message, I think it was on Tuesday or Wednesday, and somebody told me how many applications Bank of America got after they announced their SPCP rollout. It was like 9,000 people had applied, right? But that was all people, Black, white, Asian. If you look at just Black people, hear me out, Todd. There were more Black people who applied for a home loan at Legacy Home Loans than applied for a loan at Bank of America.
Whoa, say that again.
I'm going to say that again, but I'm going to say it slower.
Okay, we make sure our listeners can hear that.
I said there were more Black people in the last week who applied for a home loan with Legacy Home Loans than those who applied at Bank of America. That is a David and Goliath concept. Does that make sense to you?
Absolutely.
I made some phone calls because some people were waiting to get to still apply for the home loan. And I made some phone calls back to people who didn't get their applications taken. And I talked to like 7 of them today. They're in Atlanta, North Carolina, Chicago, Nevada. And I said, what made us? I said, were you in the house process to buy a home? And they said, actually, no, I wasn't. I said, what made you apply for Legacy Home Loans? And they said, after I saw Ben speak, I believed. Imagine the power in belief. And so I think what's happening right now is that Legacy Home Loans is proving that we're going to normalize building wealth. We're going to normalize being homeowners. And we're going to tell people, hey, you know what? Yes, there's historical injustices and anything we can do, any tool. That's why Ben decided to step in the front with the SPCP program that we created, right? Whatever tool we can use, but make no mistake, that one tool won't solve this problem. We collectively will believe big enough, empower each other, and create strategy to do that. So when you think about that, say, how do you solve that problem? Well, we say, okay, we know that some borrowers might not be credit ready today, right, to buy a property. So we say, you know what, that's okay. Most people who are not credit ready, they get adverse action, they get denied for an actual home loan. There's no roadmap to help build them up with credit. So what we've done, we've actually partnered with a national credit agency. And so that's actually Black owned too, to keep it in the ecosystem. And so we say, hey, if somebody's not credit ready, but they have the motivation to do so, let's put them on a roadmap to rebuilding their credit. Because if they have the belief, now all they need is just some time to close that credit score gap.
Right.
Okay? And all of us can have stories on people who were not ready, but we stayed with them, we walked them through it, and they've done it. So patience is a virtue of Legacy Home Loans, number one. I think number two is the person who has a credit score, Lending Tree did a study on this a year and a half ago, and they surveyed that almost 33% of Black people believe they experience racial bias when applying for a home loan. So we say, okay, let's build a underwriting team and let's find a head of operations qualified, who's excellent, who can make sure that every Black person gets a fair shot at the American dream. We've done that. We went through our process. We found Shirley Miller, who runs operations.
Yes.
So the people in
Shirley
closing, people in underwriting, right? People in processing, they look like you and I, by and large. And so you say, okay, if you know the problems exist, let's find a method. And we believe that business is best equipped to build a company at profit that could solve those problems at scale. And that's our vision for Legacy Home Loans.
Absolutely, absolutely. And one of the things that it pointed to is how the dollar circulates, right? We talk about how that dollar circulates outside of in our community. But with Legacy Home Loans, it sounds like what you and Ben have created at the top from a leadership perspective is to have that dollar circulate multiple times, because we have loan officers that look like us. We have processors that look like us, underwriters that look like us, the head of the company that looks like us, and an ecosystem that is created to then nurture people that are not necessarily ready for the home buying process. We nurture them into being ready. So that is ways to keep that dollar circulating in our community. So I applaud you guys for that. You touched a little bit on the program that is caused a lot of attention back over to Legacy Home Loans. And partnering with the government was actually one of the questions that we were leading into. So this is a toss-up question. Ben, Nick, whoever decides to jump in and grab this. But I know that it's important to partner with government entities and things of that nature to bring about change in the Black community. Can you talk about what we've done with Legacy Home Loans and what we've introduced as of late that has allowed us to be in position to affect change in Black and brown communities?
I'll let Nick pick up after this, but I want to come back on something you just said.
Yes, sir.
About the money being circulated in our community, but you only went through Legacy. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
We are trying our best to make sure that we circulate the money outside of Legacy. We want the escrow company to be Black. We want the home inspector to be Black. We want everyone in the process to be Black. If that is the case, then we are really circulating, recirculating, and recirculating the money back into the community. Right. And it makes a big difference when you are recirculating the money, and everyone in the transaction are the professionals that at the top professionals in the industry. And that's what we're trying to create. When I grew up, there was this thing called crabbing, where mm-hmm. crabs in a barrel, one trying to pull themselves out of the barrel, another one to pull them back down. I don't see that today. I see where everyone that I talk to says, we want to work with you guys. We want to make it happen. And that's something that's new to me as an older man. I haven't seen that. Now I see it, but I hadn't seen that before in all the years that I've been in the business. So go ahead, Nick.
No, yeah. Matter of fact, Todd,
Nick,
if I could just
Nick, we called that an alley-oop. So
hey, listen,
I laid it up for you, Ben. I put it out there for you.
That was amazing that actually be said that. But I also think it's important that people recognize this is the firm's thinking, right? This is an organization that's really thinking about how to make impact, not just for the homeowner, like how deep can this thing go, right? Like how do you really build ecosystems? And I think to Ben's context, so I'm gonna give you some context around what Ben just said. McKinsey did a research report a couple years ago and looked at the challenges of Black entrepreneurs in this country. And a few things came out. They said, one, the failure rate of a Black business to make it in year 5 is drastically higher than a white entrepreneur. Well, why is that? Because initial capital to start up. They said that the average Black entrepreneur has under $30,000 when they open up their doors. The average white entrepreneur, $150,000, 5x the upfront capital, right? Number one. You say, okay, well, another issue with that is that the average African-American who works for a Black business, average income, $35,000. If they work for a white-owned company, $53,000, right? So you say, okay, look at that. Then you say, okay, well, another issue that we have is Black businesses actually employ the Black community. So you say, okay, right now, the SBA did a study on this, 2021. Out of 1.9 million Black-owned businesses, only 110,000 employ W-2 Black people. So we're talking about that's 1%.
Mhm.
And on the flip side, you say, okay, so we are employing our people. We also aren't trying to aggregate dollars to help grow Black businesses. And so Ben and I was thinking is that, okay, well, what happens if we look at the Black homeowner? Well, we know that on average, if a Black homeowner buys a property, right, they're going to work with a loan officer, processor, underwriter, and agent on the buy side, list side, home inspector, home insurance company, closing attorney, title. You have 10 people who get employed in that transaction. If you look at what the average person makes on the transaction, it's about $23,000 in total. So when one Black family buys a property and obtains a mortgage, they just created about $25,000 in the ecosystem. That's one person. Well, if you look at that, well, last year there were 375,000 Black families who became homeowners. So you multiply that, what you get is almost $9 billion that was created in the Black ecosystem, but only 1% went to a Black mortgage company, right? Doesn't exist. So it leaves the minute we get the keys, that money dissipates.
Right.
Well, Ben's thought is that what if we could harness those dollars? So we made a pledge in the next 5 years. We want to be able to circulate over $100 million into the Black ecosystem. If we can do that, Todd, now those title companies who need to compete for great Black talent, they can afford to do so. They need money for innovation. They need money for added resources, right? They can do it at scale if we could begin to harness it. But if we're just the idea, we'll become the tipping point of who will follow. And so I think that from Ben's standpoint, not only are we going to build the Black homeowner and help create wealth, but we want to make sure that we keep that wealth within our community. To give you some context.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. And with that being said, I want to actually open this question up when we're talking about the mindset, because we talked about this ecosystem and the fact that as consumers, we spend our dollars wherever, all right? And sometimes we don't necessarily think about putting our resources back into the Black ecosystem, which is what you talked about. And we talked about trillions of dollars that that we had as Black people, as far as, you know, overall revenue in the past year or so. So how important is the mindset in helping us shift the mindset with our people that changes that narrative from no, I can't accomplish this thing, or no, I don't want to work with a Black business, to yes, I can accomplish this piece of the American dream. And yes, I want to do that using a Black company. How important is that?
Oh, I would say it's extremely important. And I think it goes back to Ben's initial response when he said that we want to build a Black company for people who are excellent, people who are professionals,
Right.
people who are the 5H. There's a standard at Legacy Home Loans. And so we don't want people to think that because you are Black, you have to work with Legacy Home Loans. It's because we're Black and we're great collectively. And we're a reminder of who we all can be at the highest level. And so I think that when we have to recognize, Todd, that there's sometimes a burden of being a Black business, because there is an inferiority complex that exists that's been embedded for many reasons. As a matter of fact, 1927, there was a convention in Philadelphia at the National Negro Business League, and there's a speaker, keynote, who said the biggest problem of the day is trying to convince Black people to trust white banks like they do Black banks. And that was 100 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
And here we are today. And as much as I said about the emails that I'm getting, there are still people, you know, who are like, hey, is this thing real? Is this company real? Where does this company come from? You know, I think I talked to who was that yesterday? Who did I text? I can't recall who it was, but I got an agent from you know, KW. And you know, she said, I got this client and she wants to believe it, but she has some doubt. Right. Wow. And so we have to recognize that, look, Todd, if you give it context, we've been here as a people for 403 years. And and up until 50 years ago, we were considered men. Just give that context for a second, right? Like Black men were recognized as legal human beings 50 years ago. Ben would tell you there were times that Black men have to walk off the corner of the street for a white child to walk past them. I still see Alex, I can't recall the guy's name, but 1964, when we were able to, when the voting rights bill passed, and he was a journalist and he was going to go vote, and he was walking to the voting poll. He's just getting beat up and punched and spit on, throw his hat down. He's just a proud man, because I know that he believed one day this will not happen, and he really believes that. And here we are today manifesting that belief. And so I think that it's critically important, but I think it's also important too that we have to give ourselves grace as well. Okay. And so ultimately our job is to focus on the work, do it at a high level, because I love the fact that it's already happening, Todd. It's already been a tipping point. People want to believe, right. People want to do it. They just need to have proof of concept, right? Because there's been too many times. Go back to the Freedmen's Bank, 1863, right? You got Black people who are being told, hey, we won't give you the free acres of land that we're giving the rest of the people through the Homestead Act, but we'll help you save money and learn how to be a thrifter spender. And you saw Black people in 9 years, Todd, collectively save $1.5 billion. In the 1800s, Todd, $1.5 billion. But they also seen that money mismanaged, and they saw that money lost. And we saw how deep it impacted our mistrust for banks in general. That still exists today. So if you have historical context and you have grace, you recognize our job is to do the work. And if we do the work at scale, we're going to, just like legacy home loans. You start off with 10 people, then it multiplies to 20, then 100, then 1,000. Now they believe. Right. And so I think ultimately, if you have that level of context, I think we can have great momentum in very short order.
But, you know, also from the other side, the borrowers, you know, the average person, average Black person that wants to become a homeowner sometimes eliminates themselves.
Yes.
They decide, I'm not qualified, I can't do it, and don't try. It's kind of sad that we have put ourselves in that position, and you know, the mindset is everything. I mean, everything. You can't run a business without the right mindset. You know, you can't do anything without the right mindset. So mindset is everything. If you have that and determination, right mindset and determination, nothing can stop you. And, you know, yes, there are borrowers out there that, you know, don't never been trained and taught how to save money. You know, some people have, you know, there's a young man that has an organization called, I think, House Before the Car. And some of us don't think in terms of that way. They want a big car sitting in front of a small house. And instead of getting the house first, you know, but he's after that ride. And after being able to show off that I do this, and that was one of the things that I really appreciated and loved about Nick when I first met him. He had a little small car that it took me a while to get inside of it. You know, it was
Nick had a small car.
Yeah, he did. And that was that really impressed me, because here's a young man that is a number one 1%er of in the mortgage industry, making a ton of money, and driving a car that the average person, drives. He wasn't driving a big car, he knew how to invest his money and make it work for him. And he's living under his means. That's one of the other things that we need to learn to do, is to live under our means rather than above our means. And it's a lot of training, but the attitude, the mentality of people today, of our people today, is they're changing. And I'm happy to be able to see it before I leave this world. And it's a great situation, and I really enjoy it.
Absolutely. And that was such a great segue. And I want to actually, kind of get to one of the final questions, because we're running out of time. I just looked at the clock. I mean, it's such a great conversation. We may have to pick this up with part 2 next week. But I want to actually make sure that we ask this question and talk about empowering the next generation of leaders. So as fathers and husbands, myself, I'm a girl dad. I have 3 daughters. So I want to talk about how important it is to really empower the next generation of leaders, and also teach them what it means to have financial freedom, and also see that displayed in front of them. You talked to Ben about the house before the car, and what happens in our community, where we just take the time and we will buy the liability before the asset, just so we can look good outside, and we'll spend so much time cleaning the rims and different things like that, but not actually understanding the importance of having an asset that actually appreciates with time, and that value builds. So Nick, if you could, or Ben as well, can you talk about, with you guys being fathers and husbands, and also fathers of a movement, fathers of Legacy Home Loans? I consider both you gentlemen to be my mentors, not only just in business, but also personally. Can you talk about how important it is to empower the next generation of leadership?
Yeah. Do you want to?
Well, I have to take a back seat to that, because I don't think that I was the ideal parent. I was so focused on making money and building operations, building companies, that I wish I had done things a little differently, but I didn't. And I think, today, everyone that, especially, Nick will tell you that I tell him all the time, I don't want you to make the same mistakes that I made. I want you to make sure that you take care of your family, you spend time with your family, and be able to, you don't want, 50 years from now, your kid reminding you about the things that you didn't do. So, that's very important. And that's something that I wish, I had done differently, but I didn't. But I'm trying to make that happen now, and correct that. But that's very important. You got to find that balance in life. And I eventually got there, but it took me too long to get there. So
I appreciate the transparency there as well, sir. That means a lot.
For sure. And this is, I think this question, we don't have much time on it. This could be a topic by itself, just like a whole session.
Absolutely.
But just, I would highlight a few things. You mentioned the importance of mentorship is one component in that. And I'll tell you, I'm thankful for Ben, and look at Ben like a father, and he knows that I grew up without one. And so I think that for me, when me and Ben met, I was very much on that same path, where as a man, my identity was made up, my ability to be a provider, right? When you grow up in poverty, you don't have much, you have these traumas kind of growing up. If you don't heal from them, you repeat these same mistakes. And so I think Ben was gracious enough. I look back at my family now, and, my wife, and we're so much better as a husband and as a and as a wife because of my ability to have a growth mindset and be able to get wisdom from an actual man who's lived it and said, hey man, I know the path you're going down. Let me tell you where it leads. That's the path that you want for yourself. And if the answer is no, here's how you pivot. Here's my mistakes, right? That's how Jay-Z said, right? His job is to shorten the distance of success. And so I would tell you that empowerment is so powerful, brother. And it's so important because you and I recognize this too. At another organization, we might have not had the capacity to grow. There might have been a glass ceiling that many of us have to actually go through, which goes back, I think I will end it here with the power of Ubuntu, because Ubuntu says it's not about me, it's about us. And Ben believes that. And so for us to see Ben mention life in 3 chapters, for Ben to be in chapter 3, and many of us still in chapter 2, right? We could learn with the wisdom, we could be empowered in order to make sure that Ben's whole vision is when my time does come, and by the way, he's very healthy. He might be here for another 50 years, like Abraham, who knows, right?
Absolutely.
But the reality is that one day he will step down and he wants to see the vision still go on. That's what mentorship does for you. That's empowerment. And I ended here about the whole kid. So my daughter, Yana, I have 3. I know you're a girl dad, you got your daughters. I got 3, I got 2 girls and I got my son. And every time I come home, my daughter, Yana, she says, Dad, it's her thing. She says, Dad, did you change the world today? She's 4.
Beautiful.
She thinks I'm the Black Panther, like in real life, right? She thinks I'm really T'Challa, man.
Right.
That's perfect.
Right?
That's
right.
absolutely outstanding. That's the way it's supposed to be.
Right. And so ultimately it's like, what does that do for her to feel proud to be a Goucher, to know she's here to serve, to be great? And she doesn't have to read it in a book. She can see it in real life. I think that's the beauty of mentorship, of empowerment, and Legacy Home Loans has been built with that ideology in mind.
Absolutely. And as we get ready to wrap on the first segment of Reclaiming the Legacy, I just want to actually ask the question of what's next for Legacy Home Loans. And I want you guys both, please, to take a few moments and just unpack that to tell the listeners across the country that have been seeing and they've been put on notice that we're here and we're not overnight success. We've been putting in the work and we have a lot more work to do. So if you could please take a moment to just talk about that before we get ready to wrap up and sign out for this evening.
I want every Black person in the United States, whenever they start thinking about a loan for their home, either to purchase, to refinance, the first thought in their mind is legacy. And everything that I'm working for, everything that I do, and Nick does, is to get us in that position where we are number 1, and we just happen to be Black.
Right.
Number 1 in the country, but just happen to be Black. I think that is something that I'm looking forward to seeing happen, that we become a household word. And whenever someone wants to, any Black person in the country that wants to get a loan, buy a home, legacy, it comes to mind. The first thought. We may not be able to do every loan. No doubt, we cannot do every loan, but we can really make a difference.
Yes, sir. Mr. Goucher, please, if you will.
I mean, to me, that was a mic drop, right there, what Ben said. But it's funny, this is how me and Ben operate, because Ben says that, and I ask myself, why can't we do every loan? That's what I ask myself. Let's figure this thing out. But I do think to echo Ben's point, I'll bring this on with you, because what you have on right now, you have on this purple jacket. And Ben made it for a reason, because purple represents royalty. And I think that for us, legacy is something bigger I think it's an idea as a reminder of who we truly are when we step into our natural selves. Right? Somebody say, if you're talking proper, you're talking to ... I said, no, I'm talking because I am the creator of language. If somebody says, oh, you're great at academia, you're acting, no. It's because in my DNA, we created math, science, and astrology. I'm just reminding you who we are. You must have forgot. You try to make us forget, but I remember. And when you see me, you'll remember and you'll be put on notice. And I think for us, Legacy Home Loans should embody greatness. And that's who we are.
And those are the two mic drops from the leaders. Our CEO, Mr. Ben Slayton, our Senior Vice President, Mr. Nick Goucher, with Legacy Home Loans, where today on the first episode of Reclaiming the Legacy, we talked about the past, present, and we're going to leave the future of Legacy Home Loans for our segment next week. So if you enjoyed what we talked about today, if you have questions, you can also text those to 682-710-1101. Again, that number is 682-710-1101. You can text your comments there, text your questions there, and our team will definitely get back to you in a timely manner. Once again, my name is T. Todd Simon, Regional Manager with Legacy Home Loans, and my heart is just full today.
Hey, you did great today, brother. You killed it, man.
You killed it, Todd.
Come on, Todd.
Todd, you are the man.
You're a natural,
you guys are stopping me in the middle of my sign out.
Sorry, man. You
start
crushed
over
it, dude.
again. My name is T. Todd Simon, Regional Manager with Legacy Home Loans, and this is Reclaiming the Legacy, guys. As you see, we're family. We're human, right? We have fun. We talk. We laugh, and we have fun changing the narrative and closing the gap with
There
Legacy
you
Home
go.
Loans.
T.
Thank you
Todd
guys so much for a
Simon,
great segment. We'll see you
That's
next
right.
time.
Regional Manager, Southwest Region for Legacy Home Loans. And folks, I know you've got to be as excited as I am. But I do have a bone to pick with Nick Goucher. Nick Goucher, you were keeping the purple jackets from me. How dare you, Nick? You were keeping those purple jackets from me. I love those purple jackets. And yes, that means royalty. So you and Ben Slayton have done the right thing. And I want you to know it is a pleasure. It is an honor. It is, oh my God, this is great. Can't get any greater than this. I see not only stars, this is going to the moon. This is wonderful. You guys have killed it. And that's a term I don't ever use. You guys have done this. And T. Todd Simon, Regional Manager for the Southeast region for Legacy Home Loans. You don't need me to be on the show with you, dude. I'm a visitor. You are great. You are
Yes,
great.
ma'am. Thank you,
Thank
Queen.
you very, very much. This was outstanding. There's so much more to talk about. Some of your people have been on. I see that Shantae was on, and she is so excited. She said that the best people on the planet, Nick Goucher and Ben Slayton, she said those are her favorite people. So you guys, this is absolutely wonderful. And thank you for bringing this historical show, historical moment. All of this stuff that you're doing will be history. And thank you for bringing this to Intentional Talk Radio Network. It is a pleasure. It is an honor. Thank you so much. And we will see you all next week. We've got so much more to talk about. Have a good evening, folks.
Bye-bye
Thank
now.
you.
Thank you, T. Todd Simon. Boy, you put a in it.
Yes,
Yeah,
ma'am.
buddy.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, buddy. You're the man.
We
You're the
got,
man.
we got some more stuff coming. Y'all better stay
Right.
tuned. Stay
All
tuned.
right. Thank you so much.